Haunting Adeline. Is it a dark romance or just a grotesque display of abuse? This has been a somewhat controversial story, with some people praising the book and others questioning the context. I sacrificed my comfort and mental state to read this disturbing story, so let's dive in. In this video, I'm going to discuss mature themes for ages 18 and older, such as human trafficking and non-consensual intimate and sexual encounters. Please move forward at your own risk. This will also contain spoilers for Haunting Adeline. This book was dark, not only in romance aspect, but in theme as well. Haunting Adeline is a book I never anticipated to read myself, but it has recently come up quite a bit in my personal life, and I decided to give it a shot so I could review it and see what it's all about actually. Before we get into it, I want to take a couple seconds to ask you to like and possibly subscribe. It really helps me to keep making reviews like this. Now back to the video. So Haunting Adeline is one of two books specified as part one of the Cat and Mouse duet. It is written by H.D. Carlton, who I don't know very much about other than she writes dark romances. It is told in a first-person perspective, switching between the manipulator and the shadow. This is what the back of the book looks like, and honestly, I don't think it does a good job of explaining what the book is about at all. It's incredibly unhelpful. It doesn't speak about any of the aspects going on in the book, none of the plot. It doesn't really introduce the characters either. You don't know what their names are. I personally don't think the blurb back here does anything for the book at all. So we have the Shadow. The Shadow is the male love interest, Zaid. I understand why he's called the Shadow. It's because he's stalking Addie. He's shadowing her. He is her shadow, basically. Now, I don't get why we're calling Addie the manipulator. There is a single line in the book that gives us why she's the manipulator, and it's because she herself is an author, and it's reference between her and her friend that she manipulates the emotions of her readers and refers to herself as a master manipulator, like as a joke. I guess maybe that's just lost on me. I don't really see the point in that specific reference to her as being a manipulator throughout the whole book, because she's really not. She makes a lot of stupid choices. So then we have a disclaimer inside the book. This isn't actually a disclaimer, it's not a content warning. It is labeled as important note and very easy to skim over if you're not a person who reads the notes before you start the book. I have an issue with this because of the content inside the book and this being skimmed over so quickly. So it starts by saying that, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but that H.D. Carlton doesn't promote anti-Semitics, I think that's how you pronounce that, or QAnon, and that none of these ideas were derived from anti-Semitic views or QAnon. However, once you read the book, it is so paralleled. It's like you pulled it straight out of the QAnon wiki, almost. So, personally, it's either we're lying about it not coming from QAnon or something else is going on there. I don't know, but it really matches up with QAnon. Right down to the cannibalistic, child sex trafficking, and deep state government ideas. I'm not sure how that came from her own demented imagination when it is very plainly paralleled right there. It's very obvious. I also feel the content warning isn't clear enough in the section beneath the initial note. It does include the warning about gunplay, somnophilia, non-consensual, dubious consent, and so on, but if somebody were to just skim that really fast, they could easily hop over it. I personally feel like that might have needed to be a completely separate page or be labeled as content warning to let people know that there is some really dark stuff happening in this book. Also, as for it being labeled non/dubcon, I don't think that was the correct label for this. There is some kind of dubious consent going on there, but it's not just non-consensual. It is rape. It is straight up rape. And I feel like that needs to be labeled as opposed to just calling it non-consensual. Because some of the content warnings of her other books do plainly state that in place of non-consent. So, moving past the book itself, the physical aspect of it, I want to be very clear. This book is filled with topics I would never personally want to read or support, or honestly, just topics I can't imagine anyone wanting to read. But being clear, I want to say I'm not going to judge anyone for their views. If somebody has enjoyed this book, that is amazing for them. Reading is all about finding entertainment and enjoyment in the stories you're reading. So read whatever you enjoy, but be aware if you liked this book, I'm coming in here to tear it apart as to why I didn't like it and why I don't support it. And to also try and give other people an understanding of what it's about should they decide not to read it but want to know more about it. The disclaimer in the book also states these books have been previously taken down due to the content warning. And I think if that doesn't scream maybe this shouldn't be published out there, I'm not sure what does, but I am not here to decide what should or should not be published. I want to make it clear I don't think this book should be romanticized in any way whatsoever as a healthy relationship in any sort. Moving on to a quick summary of the book, we have Adeline. Adeline is an author. I have no idea what kind of books she writes because that's not specified, as far as I can remember. You also don't get much of her author storyline in the book, save for a few scenes at the beginning where she's attending an author event, but you're not really there with her. You're just in her mind for a moment, basically. And then there's a few references to she spent a few hours writing throughout the day or something along those lines. But other than that, you get nothing in her author storyline. She lives in her grandmother's haunted manor called Parsons Manor that Nana left to her when she passed away about a year ago. The manor is haunted, and there are ghosts in it, and the ghost plotline is heavily pushed in the beginning of this book, but then it is almost essentially forgotten about throughout the end of the book. And it's a bit goofy and unnecessary to me. I feel like the only thing that ghost plotline provided could have been provided in an entirely different way. There was no need for the house to be haunted. These ghosts played no role in the story whatsoever, personally, I feel. Next, we have Zaid. Zaid has created an organization called Z, in which he hires people, and there are several teams of it throughout the United States, to infiltrate and take down child sex trafficking rings. He saves the young women and either sends them back home to their families or provides a safe house for them to live out their life safely and comfortably after being rescued. It sounds absolutely amazing, right? You're like, wow, this man, yeah, it turns dark when he starts stalking Addie and assaulting her, because that's what he does in his spare time once he sees her face on a poster for an author event. The plot of the book is essentially Adeline is trying to solve her great-grandmother, Gigi, her murder, because she found some journals and found out her great-grandmother was murdered in Parsons Manor. And Zaid's plot is that he is trying to infiltrate a government group that's basically QAnon, that's sacrificing kids and releasing videos on the internet about it or whatever. These two plot paths cross because one, Zaid is stalking Adeline, and two, Adeline is out in public and one of the men Zaid is trying to befriend to infiltrate this group sees Adeline, and he actually knows information about Gigi's murder. And so that is how the plots start to cross, and they both kind of become involved with one another. So some information about the characters before we start into more details. Adeline is about 26 years old. She is an author, as I have previously mentioned, and she lives in her Nana's home by herself. As we've also mentioned, Nana's home is haunted. Adeline is not in a relationship, and she loves all things creepy and horror movies and likes that rush of adrenaline that comes with being a little bit afraid. Zaid is OMG the best hacker ever. He owns and runs his organization, Z. Oh, and he's basically a husky because he has mismatched eyes, with one being really bright blue, almost white, and the other being really dark brown. He likes to hunt Adeline like a cat, as if she were a mouse. Therefore, the cat and mouse duet. He has morals for saving women and treating them properly, but then he goes and breaks them to torment Adeline. So there's your characters. Moving into some of the plot related information. Between almost every chapter, I don't think it's every chapter, but most chapters, is a photo of essentially a diary entry by Gigi, because these are the entries that Adeline is reading out of these journals she found. Gigi and Addie's lives are paralleled because in these entries, Gigi is writing about a stalker that she's falling in love with and cheating on her husband with. I didn't really understand or see the point of their lives being paralleled and Gigi also having a stalker and learning about that, but I did understand the plot. Like, I could see why we're including Gigi's murder and Adeline trying to solve it. I just didn't see the reason for their lives to kind of be mirrors of one another. And to be honest, this plot was incredibly boring to me. I did not care for it. It felt like it was brought up for convenience of a plot, but the characters, just the way they reacted, didn't matter to me. There didn't feel like there was a why for this plot to exist. It was just, here's a thing. Zaid is in Seattle, where this book takes place, around the Seattle area, to, as I mentioned before, dismantle this QAnon group, often referred to as the Society. This is where that QAnon plot comes in for the book. Zaid is inserting himself to be a man on the inside to dismantle the Society. His organization is called Z. He goes by Z. He cozies up to these senators to gain access to their society. He ends up killing them, but he has kind of befriended this other guy in the society who gets him entrance. The reason I mentioned that his organization is called Z and he goes by Z is because I don't know very much about QAnon. I just skimmed the wiki page for it after learning about it, and that the entity or something is called Q, and there's yet another parallel there with QAnon. There's Z, there's Q. I don't know how prevalent this is, but I wanted to include it. The end of the book is a cliffhanger on both sides of the story between Adeline and Zaid. Zaid's plan to infiltrate the society backfires, as at the initiation ceremony, it turns out that it was a complete setup from the society itself to catch him. And it was actually a setup by one of the senator's wives that Zaid had thought was being abused herself by her husband. This is one of the men that Zaid kills in the book. I don't get if he's suddenly been taken prisoner or not by the end of the book, because his last chapter just ends with one of the guys he works with, Jay, coming in and going, "Dude, it's been a setup. We've all been set up. They did this on purpose." And then a person behind him cocks a gun, and Zaid's like, "You," and that's how it ends. Like, you don't really know. Addie's cliffhanger. She is going over to her friend's house because she's concerned about some text she sent her, and she ends up getting kidnapped. You do know that she's been kidnapped by Max. Now, Max is a guy we met earlier in the story because Addie tried to sleep with his friend Archie, but Archie got murdered by Zaid. Zaid also sent her Archie's hands after he cut them off. And Max is out for revenge for his friend Archie. The reason I think this is incredibly stupid is because it was a concern, because Archie and Max are part of some big powerful families, and now that Archie's dead, it's that they're going to take revenge on whoever killed him. And Zaid makes it clear that that's not going to happen, and then we forget about them for 60% of the book, because they're introduced a little bit in the beginning, and then they're literally never mentioned again because they're not a problem. And then it's psych, they were a problem. The smut. This is what I find to be the absolute most controversial part of this book, as I feel many of the people do when I've read a lot of reviews for this. They don't like this part. So this is where things have more triggering content, so please keep that in mind as you proceed. Zaid is stalking Addie for several days to weeks and threatening her and scaring her, yada yada, the whole 9 yards. He ends up in her house and chases her down, pins her to the ground, pulls out a gun, We also don't specify what kind of gun this is. And then he uses it to rape her, like putting the barrel of it inside her hoo-ha, and makes her, enjoy herself to completion. I cannot stand this. It was disgusting. This was the first decent display of romantic sexual encounter, intimacy at all, and it starts with this. Mind you, this is also a loaded gun, so that was just even more heavily uncomfortable. He also forces himself upon her several times by route of oral sex, both giving and receiving. Throughout these scenes, whenever they are in physical encounters with one another, we are getting Addie's point of view, where she has said that she feels her body is betraying her, because that's what's happening. That's quite a common thing that survivors will speak about in the healing process, because your body does betray you in those moments. Your mind doesn't want it, but your body is simply reacting to a stimulation it is receiving. And that is betrayal. It does feel that way, and it absolutely is. And so no, Adeline is not enjoying this at all. She's reacting to stimulation, and I think it's sort of, in a way, for lack of a better term, brainwashing her into liking this, because it's happened so often, and she starts to give in to the stimulation her body receives, rather than going with what her mind knows, that she doesn't want this. It is abhorrent, and I absolutely hate it. I want to preface, I do not want to justify this, and I do not agree with it at all. But there is a line that explains, sort of, why Zaid is doing this, when we know his morals and how he wants to save the women from being trafficked. Addie's friend Dea mentioned something about Zaid's personal life versus his work life. Dea works for his organization Z. She's never met him, so she didn't know this was him being Addie's stalker for a long time. But she said it would make sense for him to have stalking sort of infiltrate his personal life, because that's what he does for a living. And he does. He stalks these men, follows them to warehouses to save these girls. That's who he is. So it does make sense that that has become a part of his personality. I still do not agree with it, and it's still absolutely wrong, and he should go to therapy or something instead. Zaid even says that he knows it's wrong. So I still don't get why we're doing this, why we're saying this is okay for him to do. So, content of the book aside, I had a lot of problems with the actual writing of the book, because it didn't feel like a polished story either. It was not great plot ideas, but it wasn't executed well either in terms of those ideas. I don't feel the characters had much dimension to them at all. The way I read them, they just had no reason for doing anything. I don't know anything about them or what drives them other than what was relevant to the plot. I don't know their favorite colors. I don't know anything about their childhood other than Zaid's mom liked roses and Addie's mom was mean. Addie just likes horror. Zaid just likes saving women. But why? There's nothing telling me why they like these things. I want to relate to them. I want to understand them. I don't want to just be told something about them. I also feel like the author didn't put a lot of effort into researching some tasks or events or things that occur in the book. As I mentioned, the gun scene between Zaid and Addie, we never specify what kind of gun. It's, if I recall correctly, and I'll put it up here on screen, literally just that he pulls a gun out from like the back of his pants, and that's it. We're not even saying that it's a handgun. We're not saying what kind of gun. And Addie, as an author, I feel like might know some stuff if she's researched that before for a story. But let's say she hasn't. You can still say he pulled a handgun out, and Addie could look at it and say, it looks like the kind I've seen a cop use on a TV show. Like, it's smooth and doesn't look rigid, because there's ones with a lot of ridges in them that could absolutely tear her up. And also the fact that we're insisting that he did all that to her and she had absolutely no damage whatsoever go on up inside there, I don't believe it. Addie also gets her porch replaced as she's renovating and restoring the manor as she's moved into it. Now that's all fine and dandy, but if I remember right, it was only 2 days of getting this porch entirely restored. Do you know how long it takes to get a porch that's not structurally sound, restored, painted, put together, all that? It's longer than 2 days, especially if we had like concrete involved. There's also a mention quite a few times of how Parsons Manor lays back about a mile from the main road, which is fine. Lots of houses do that. I live pretty far back from a main road. Adeline is saying that her house is so far back that she doesn't have a mailbox, so they just leave the mail on her doorstep. Now, for me, we have a bank of mailboxes. We don't have the mailbox at the end of the driveway kind of thing, but I know a lot of neighborhoods do have that, and a lot now just have the bank of mailboxes. This is fine. Adeline, maybe she doesn't live in a neighborhood and she doesn't have a mailbox at the end of her road. They still legally cannot leave her mail on the doorstep. If this is true for anyone, please let me know, because I Googled this extensively to figure out whether or not they can do that. They can't. Mail has to be delivered in a receptacle, whether that be a mailbox or a P.O. box at the post office. If you don't have a mail receptacle at home, you can get a free P.O. box at the post office because they have to be able to deliver your mail. So it was just a continuity issue there. It really bothered me. Let's talk about the F word. I'm trying not to curse in these videos just for sake of language, so we're referencing it as the F word, but we all know what it is. It is used so much in this book. It is used at least once a page in reference to sex or in reference to emphasizing something. I'm saying at least once a page because I swear to you I read it on almost every page. For the pages that didn't have it, that's okay. Other pages make up for it by including it 2 or 3 times. When I tried counting how many times it occurred on pages to find the one it occurred on most, it was at least 3 on one page. I did think about scrolling through the entire book on Kindle and trying to count how many instances it occurs actually, but that would take too long. So I'm going to say on average the F word occurs twice a page in this 616 page book. That's a lot of times. It's a lot of unnecessary Fs. I have no Fs left to give. There were also quite a few typos in my book. Now, I didn't want to read this book. Like I said, I was reading it to do a review and learn more about it. So I was grateful that it was available to me through Kindle Unlimited because I have that subscription. I don't know how to explain typos because they're not in the physical copy. I stopped at Target several times to double check between my copy and Target's copy. They're not in the physical book. I did see reviews where people had the same issue with these typos, which I have put up here for you to see, but it's not consistent throughout Kindle copies or e-copies of this book either, so it's a little bit confusing. This obviously isn't the author's doing or an editing issue. I feel like there was some sort of formatting issue with it, the e-book document somehow, but it was very distracting. There were a couple lines that were just goofy to me, and I wanted to mention those as well. One of them is Addie is on the phone with her mom talking about Gigi, and this is where she discovers Gigi was murdered because her mom says not only did she die in that house, but she was murdered. And it makes sense for the emphasis of like, yeah, she died in the house, but she was murdered in the house, not just like an old lady who passed peacefully. I just thought it was goofy because it came out to me like not only did she die, but she died. So it just came off a little goofy to me when I read it the first time. Also, the way Zaid references himself building his organization is literally, I created my org, Z, from the ground up, which is fine. But why are we abbreviating it as org? Just, I created my organization, Z, from the ground up. It just felt a little weird. I don't support that one. Also, you never learn his name until almost 50% of the way through the book. I think I highlighted the exact thing was at 48%. He's only referenced as Z throughout this entire thing. And because of the blurb on the back of the book, not including his name, you don't know his name is Zaid until halfway through the book. Zaid also says about twice that his jackets have a special lead lining pocket in them so that he can walk through body scanners without having certain items detected, like one of those microphone earpieces, since he's, a little spy guy. This is somewhat true. He says specifically he can walk through any body scanner without detection. That's not true. You can walk through a lot of them. This was really hard for me to research and try and figure out, and to be honest, I didn't put that much effort into it, but it's not any body scanner. It's just, there's a lot of them that you can, but there's also some that you can't. There's also the line of the building tension swelling in Addie's shoulders. It felt a little too much. I felt we could have the building tension in Addie's shoulders or the tension swelling in Addie's shoulders. But we didn't need building and swelling because those are kind of synonyms for one another in relation to the tension in her shoulders. That is about it for me talking about Haunting Adeline. I really did not enjoy this book. I am not going to read the second book, but if this video can get 15 likes and you guys really want me to read the second one and do a review of it, I will, but other than that, I probably won't be doing that. Thank you so much for watching my video today. Once again, please, please, please like and subscribe, and if you really want to boost that algorithm, hit share and copy link, or maybe just send it to your friends too, because that's awesome. If you want to see more from me or hear more of my thoughts, my Instagram and Goodreads will be down below in the description box. If you have any recommendations or want to see something specific, please let me know, because I'm always happy to cater to the people. Feel free to drop those recommendations down in the comments, or just let me know how you liked this video. Thank you again so much for watching. I am Kate, and I will see you again soon. Bye!
Das war schön.